I'm Dane Rose, and in this video I want to explore a couple of different patterns and how they intersect. And it's going to take a moment because there we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to explore is the liquefaction flow crystallizing point. Now, emotions are often considered very much like water because of their feminine nature. They're in the moment, they flow, they respond instantly to the environment. They're very sensitive, very attuned. And this is the best vehicle, meaning the heart, which is an amazing organ when you think about it, because one of the things that I realize about consciousness is there's this infinite energy spectrum, and then we have observing and measuring devices that bring a very narrow bit of that energy spectrum into focus. And it exists on an energy spectrum, but it is our consciousness that makes it exist for us. And the heart, as a lens of perception, is one of the most finely tuned scientific tools for understanding the chemistry of the moment, both with our environment, but even more so with people and other hearts. It's like an instrument that can make music or can make, profoundly traumatizing noise, and can also hear music and hear profoundly traumatizing noise. But like every microphone, if you've been in a rock concert or anything, you can have that dangerous phenomena where it begins to go into reverb and then escalates into that horrific screech where it's a feedback loop that is so fast it just exponentially goes off the chart. And emotions, both dark and light, have with the heart the capacity to go into that kind of a loop. And when they do, there are dissociation points. This is where you pull out the plug and start fresh if you know how to put the plug back in. Our body and our biology pulls out the plug and says, no more of that screech. And it's like a numbness after that, horrifying sound. And what's going on here? But because the pull-out of the plug is instinctual and a survival mechanism of dissociation as a trauma response, and our culture is trauma literate, we actually teach people more about microphones than we do about our own heart. I mean, think about that. The heart is an instrument that is off the chart. You talk about a hammered dulcimer with, 16 different bridges and different, 3 notes each that need to be tuned and this and that and the other. And that's nothing compared to the 3,000 string, just to give a very tiny inclination of the scale of the human heart for registering certain kinds of energy, being in or out of tune, making lots of noise, or the most exquisite music imaginable. We're supposed to wing that one. Now we understand. Can you play the hammered dulcimer? No, never. Well, why would I be able to do that? Well, did you ever get any lessons for that? No. We understand that we cannot play this instrument or this instrument without practice, without effort, without detailed listening, without learning to really pay attention and practice. But we don't seem to grasp these things with our heart. We do not understand as a society. I mean, let's see if you can follow the thread from one emotion. Because if we understand that the heart is a vibration registering device and a vibration generating device, then when you play this string of hate, a musically trained harp player knows how to turn that hate from a D minus into a C plus, to move the vibration up and down with different intensities. But to do that, you have to know certain principles. When you tune it this way, it tightens the string. The more you tighten the string, the more it does this. That there are certain chords. You have to have a basic language. And musicians don't, by and large, just say, oh, just wing it. You have the occasional virtuoso, the occasional Jimi Hendrix, who, without learning to play music and just thousands of hours of sitting alone in his room as an introvert, practicing and practicing and practicing, and lo and behold, all these amazing, masterful sounds that nobody else has heard. And you do have the occasional introvert who plays around with their heart in this way and this way and this way, and starts to learn things that none of the rest of us understand, because we do not consider it worthwhile in any education system to teach human beings how to play music on their own heart. Now, this crystallizing point, which in water there's a certain point, it's at 32 degrees, where it starts to bind up. Now, a similar phenomena happens in the pH scale of the soil. One of the basic things you learn in horticulture is that there's nitrogen, but the question is it released nitrogen or is it bound up? When it's bound up in the soil, it means that it's in the soil, but it is not available for the plant. In nuclear energy, the energy is in the atom, but it is not available for human beings. So there's these different points of flow and freeze, flow and freeze. Now, the same can be said of a population or a species, that there are endless amounts of nutrients in a population, but they are bound up or they are available. You look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the third of which is the need to feel and be loved and to belong. And are those needs being met? Now, if you look at the capacity of a population to love and be loved, you might say it's 1,000-fold bigger than we're actually feeling as a population. In other words, if you do a 1 to 10 scale, and you ask a demographic of 10,000 Americans on a 1 to 10 scale, in this moment, how loved do you feel? 1 to 10. How loved do you feel by your partner? How loved do you feel by your best friend, if you have a best friend? This is actually a questionable thing in our culture. How loved do you feel by your boss, by your employees? How loved do you feel in this relationship, in this relationship? How loved did you feel as a child? Overall in certain areas. And how much do you love yourself? 1 to 10. At work, in this relationship, when you're waking up at 4 in the morning, at this demographic, at this point. Have you ever felt totally and completely loved? For how many minutes? Do you know what produced it? Do you know what didn't produce it? This is actually, as an aside, I have never met the human being that could answer the question, what would make you feel completely and totally loved in this moment? Meaning, if you had control of all the dials, that you could be with this person, with me, with someone else, the temperature, the lighting, the smells, the tastes, the conversation topic, if you could control all the variables, turn this up 20%, down 15 microns over here, 10 degrees up, all these different places, because there's an alchemy in the masculine feminine principle. There's an alchemy between the experience of complete feminine surrender into the exaltation and bliss of feeling completely and totally loved, and the exact shape, structure, strategy, love language, intensity, duration, frequency, topic, emphasis, volume that produces that feeling now. You see, and if you've got that rare opportunity where someone wants to partner with you to set the graphic equalizer of each of these things on just the right digit, and you freeze. I don't know. I feel bad because I don't know. Go away because I don't want to not know something because I'm an American and I know everything. And when you freeze in that moment, you lose the opportunity to tune the environment into the state, because you've got two variables to create great music. It's do you do it on the instrument or do you do it in in film? It's post editing. It's after the film. Oh, we can do it afterwards. We can add in the green screen and this, and we'll change your voice. We can do it then. We can change the environment that makes you exactly as you are sound amazing, or we can change you. You've got this weird shape of a music hall and a this and that and the other, and we can change you so that you sound great in a terrible environment by you compensating. And then finally we've got the listener. It's like we can bring in 1,000 listeners until we find one listener where your sound that this person didn't like, and this person didn't like, and that person didn't like, and this person thought it was too loud, and that person thought it was too tinny, and this and that. But this person thinks it's absolutely amazing. Why? Because you remind them of their grandmother, and their grandmother used to do this and that and the other, so it's the most amazing experience of their life. And so you have these variables to play with. But one way or another, you've got to work within these variables to get this experience, going back out of the music analogy, to total and complete feeling of love. Now, this is, of course, a big question. Just to complete the soil analogy, you've got to be in the kind of usually 5.5 to 8.5 range for most plants. to have any chance of being able to, of acid and alkaline, to have any chance of releasing. Now, this alkaline acid, this yin and yang, this masculine and feminine, this principle of balance is true in all domains. In temperature, you've got to have a temperature that's less than boiling. You know, if you've got steam, you don't have well, it's a completely different kind of thing. And if you've got ice, but there's this range of processable emotions. Now, the ice point in the human heart when something freezes up is the trauma point. The trauma point is the moment when the conscious instrument of the heart as a whole, you know, we talk about, you know, dissociation, etc. When the heart is overwhelmed, it cannot process within the processing capacity that is admittedly very limited. Why wouldn't it be when you and I have not received a single hour of emotional literacy in high school and college and kindergarten? I mean, you are told not to feel the things that you feel, which is actually a scientific absurdity. You know, if a battery generates 4.5 volts and you communicate that, and someone says, don't generate 4.5 volts, generate 2 volts. Well, this defies the laws of physics. You know, you have to put in resistors that cut the voltage down, and when the authentic expression of the heart is honored, you tune the environment to honor the instrument. You don't start putting mufflers on drums and, you know, carpets over them and stuff because someone doesn't like drum playing. You get them out of the space and play the drums with people that like drum playing. But we don't have these basics down with human emotions. The most sensitive, and it's a very unique instrument, meaning most animals do not have a consciousness connected, a consciousness that is consciousness connected with an instrument like the human heart. That is capable, by the way, the instrument is capable of every emotional state known to exist and unknown to exist that any human being has ever felt, could ever feel, will ever feel, is feeling all across the planet. It's a massively complex, highly responsive, highly variable instrument, which most of us have learned to abuse. We've cut strings because mom didn't want to hear about this, so we cut that string. Now we can't, now when there is a sound that evokes that particular human state, we don't feel anything. And because it's an instrument that is giving readings about what's going on in our environment, we don't know as much about our environment because we don't get to hear that distinctive sound every time so-and-so walks in the room, bing, bing, bing. There isn't any bing, bing, bing. There's silence. Because mom didn't want that part of her acknowledged in the relationship, so that got cut. And dad, you know, you played the honest tune that you felt scared of him and somewhat happy, and you'd wait to see if he was drunk or this, you know, and so this was your honest reading of mixture of anxiety on this string, terror on this string, this and that. But you see, dad didn't want to think that he could terrify a child because that might mean he wasn't a good parent. So he said, why do you always look at me like that? You know, why do you look at me with that fear in your eye? Here, smile. Could you just cut that string and that string, ignore that, and now that you've got nothing to tell you and me what's going on, what have you got? Now you have to look away when that comes up. Now you can't talk about it. But could you just cut this one and this one? And then your boyfriend didn't want to look like this. You thought he was kind of dorky, but you liked the way this and that. But see, he didn't want to see himself as dorky. So he said, well, what do you think? Oh, I think a bit dorky and I like it. Well, I don't want to be a dork. Why don't you think of me as Superman and this and that and the other? And it's like, well, you're short and you like playing in this way and that way, and I do too. But that's not kind of my image of Superman. Well, I don't want to, so just rewire this, and now could you just call short, pudgy this Superman? And okay, fine, short and pudgy is Superman. Could you rewire this? And we have all these incredible layers, so that by the time we get up with zero emotional literacy and become, quote, adults, the age of reason or intelligence or whatever, we've got this mangled tangle of strings where, so-and-so says, do you want to do the worst possible thing that's, absolutely sets off your manic depressive tendencies that you develop to cope with this and that? And you're like, yes, I'd love to do that. Do you want to spend time with so-and-so, which is just the type that brings out your sociopathic elements, and after 2 or 3 weeks, oh, I'd love to do that. And we managed to rewire this thing in the most dangerous ways imaginable, where we're getting backward signals, yeses mean nos, complete silence on this bandwidth. I know what I feel, but I always tell the person what I think they want to say because I don't like being hit. Makes sense. What can you do in a culture that has parents of this level of parental literacy? And so there's all these different stuff. But what I'm zeroing in on is the freeze point of emotion and the trauma mechanism that causes the heart to unplug and lock in place. It's like the sound is frozen in time and becomes somewhat numb and dissociative. Now this is when there are different parts of the brain that have evolved. The current story is that, we used to be reptiles. So I've got a current story of an annoying insect. It's a great metaphor for complete helplessness. The tiny little thing that, of course, do absolutely nothing you want it to do, just will come in and, in the world of the moment, this conversation just vanishes. An insect controls the destiny of this video that comes when it wants, goes when it wants, and you don't want to be there in the first place because you don't want to kill it, and has the impact it has. Now, this freeze point in the story, when we were reptiles, there was fight, flight, freeze. It was a sociopathic environment. Alligators came out, attacked each other, did whatever. It was whoever could do the fight, flight, freeze thing most effectively ate other alligators and didn't get eaten, and there was no loyalty and no emotion and no consciousness, and therefore there was no good or no bad. There was no good music or no bad music. You couldn't hear music. It was just instinct. And then you grow through the mammalian period, the bird period, the fish period, and finally the mammalian period. You become and that our brain actually echoes these, and we can watch, you know, the skeletal transformations as this moved into the water, and this moved into here, and then it stood up, and then it became monkey-like, and then it became taller, then it's, you know, all these different things that our brain actually holds the entire evolution of the planet within the different substructures and structures of the brain. And so that when we're in a sociopathic environment that feels like we're amongst a bunch of alligators, we go into fight, flight, freeze. Now, what is a sociopathic environment? A sociopathic environment, according to our brain, is an environment in which there is a perception of probable death. Now, because we're pack animals, we are, of course, pretending that we're not, courtesy of Mr. Marlboro Man, but we are pack animals. Every monkey knew, with the jaguars, with the tigers, with the, you know, every monkey knew that the survival of the individual is the survival of the group. That to be enfolded in the circle is the equivalent of biological safety. So when you hear your pack, when you feel them, when you are close, 5 feet, 10 feet, 1 foot, cuddling, holding, when you're talking together, you are safe. You're talking, you're close, you're holding, you're having sex, you're eating together, you're communicating alarm. You're together, you are safe. You're on the outside of the circle, you are not safe. This is the most dangerous thing. And so the moment when you perceive that your life is in danger, either because you're shamed and ostracized, Brené Brown has talked about the traumatic nature of shame. That as pack animals, we need to feel safe and welcome. Maslow talks about it in the hierarchy of needs, not preferences, not when I have time, needs. The need to feel belonging. Now, this also breaks into a very interesting subcategory because, for example, I feel like my teacher belongs. I can teach landscape design at the College of Marin. I can teach, how to design, landscapes over septic systems, at this community school. I can host an event at my house. But there are certain segments of my teacher persona that do not belong. Meaning, when I try and talk about the grief of wordless emotions and what our cult is doing every day to evoke the grief of those wordless emotions, nobody shows up for that event. You see, so that teaching does not belong in the environment of our culture. I can teach a sex party for highly sensitive people and have a long waiting list in, for example, the environment of the Human Awareness Institute, which when I was on the email list, that was the off-the-charts waiting list, can't get in. I had to cap it to keep it sensitive and intimate. I mean, the whole purpose of the party was that it would progress mentally, emotionally, and physically at the same time. Not just be a dissociative physical stimulation with mental, emotional dissociation or disgust or boredom or whatever it is that often happens. If a present person goes to one of these sex orgies and stuff, it's, unless you're doing drugs that override the vacuousness, it's difficult. So anyway, okay, great. We want to learn from you here. The healthy relationship practice group on how to have good endings, conscious, healthy endings in relationship. Hardly got anyone at all. And it's not rational, if you get what I mean. Meaning, if you look at it logically, how many of your relationships are going to end sometime before death? Just look in the past. How many people have you met, been lovers with, been friends with, whatever, in your entire life? Let's say it's 2,000. Let's say it's 500, whatever it is. How many of those people are actively in your life today of that whole number? It's usually less than 10%. So if you then project that forward, let's not be too pie in the sky, so of all the relationships I've ever had, 90% of them have ended. I'm not dead yet. So 90% of all relationships end for reasons other than death, before death. And in talking around, some of the worst experiences in many people's lives are terrible endings. Now, if 90% of your relationships will end, and many of those endings will be unsatisfying, undefined, uncomfortable, terrible, miserable, drawn-out, horrific experiences, does it make sense to learn an art of ending well? Yes or no? So we're dealing with logic, not instinct here. Logic. Yes or no? Okay, so how many of you are going to need to attend a sex party for the next, how many will you attend? How important will they be? Is that a significant part of your life? Do you need to attend a sex party for highly sensitive people? Yes or no? How many of, if you didn't, would your life be miserable? Da, 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 da. And you have to conclude that just about every human being ought to invest at least 4 hours in a lifetime learning how to end gracefully. Maybe 4 hours in a lifetime to end 2,000 relationships gracefully rather than miserably. Could it be, intelligent? How many 6-month drawn-out dramas have been because you didn't know how to have a 2-hour conversation in a good way? It's like, doesn't make any sense. 6 months, 2 hours, just one relationship, 6 months, 2 hours. Of course, it makes no sense to attend a relationship on ending. So nobody does. Now, I know the math, and I care about people. That caring about people is not welcome, because we live in a fantasy land culture, courtesy of emotional illiteracy, where if I don't think about it, it will just go away. Meaning, if I don't think about having a bad ending, if I just say, no, I don't want a single relationship to end, I want it to be wonderful, they're all going to go well, despite the data. So I live in fantasy land around relationship ending. And I live in fantasy land around sex for highly sensitive people. So I like the fantasy better of going to a sex party for highly sensitive people. I don't even want to fantasize about a great ending because I don't want to deal with endings. We don't like death in this culture. Sad fact, given that we will all do it, and most of us die quite miserably because we don't like thinking about the end of our lives in this culture any more than we like thinking about the end of our relationships. But they're all going to happen. Every relationship will end, whether it's on a cancer bed or in a text or in a weird, drawn-out saga of absurdity. Every relationship will end and every body will end. But maybe if we don't think about it, it will go better. Look at the data. So what I'm getting at is bits of my teacher are in high demand. The more important bits of my teacher, not how to plant a dahlia, but how to end a relationship well, are in absolute minuscule demand. I've never had a single person in my entire life say, Dane, tell me how to end a relationship well. In this culture, that question does not exist. It is a statistical anomaly in this culture, which, as a little bit of a thought prompt, let's just replace culture with its root word, cult. A phenomena of dogmatic and irrational behavior that is conforming, but is not based on referenced data in the present. Isn't that what we're so afraid of in cults? That some individual who has hypnotized a large group of people into conformity is just going to say, everyone wear red, and oh, we will all wear red. Everyone wear orange. Oh, we will all wear orange. Everyone say we're sannyasin. Oh, okay, you're a sannyasin. Everyone do this and do this. You know, everyone come do this and do this at this time. Now, this in and of itself is not good or bad. But what we are afraid of is what makes it cult-like is when it fails to reference present data. The cult avoidance of information about healthy conscious endings does not reference data. It references conformity. No one wants to be seen dead at a meeting like that. In fact, when I bring up the conversation early on in a relationship, okay, let's look at the data. There's a 90% chance that you and I are not going to know each other before death. It's not a preference of mine. It's not a whim of mine. I didn't make up this statistic. It is there. Ask your friends. Ask your past lovers. Look at your own data. Okay, can we deal with reality, not fantasy? How would you like me to end with you? Are you planning on ending with me? Do you want to end with me? It's like, no. If I wanted to end with you, I would not be here in this moment. I would have not come. I wouldn't be meeting you. Well, why do you want to know? Well, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. That's why I want to know. And, you know, the reality is I have no idea what your idea of a great ending is. Is it a text? Is it a holding? Do you want to hear all the things that I'm upset about again so that you understand exactly why I'm ending? Do you want to hear the value hierarchy? Do you want to hear what I appreciated in our relationship? What do you want to hear around an ending? What do you want to know? What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? So that you go away honored. Because let's face it, 8 billion people, I've chosen to spend a week, a month, a year, 2 years with you. And with you being the number one person of 8 billion people. There had to be a lot going on that was, that's a compliment. I mean, hopefully it's not all, you know, you reminded me of my drunk father, then, you know, I love hating myself, and you seemed like a very sociopathic person, and so I could do that, and then I've always wanted to punish men for that, and you were willing to be punished. So, you know, I really appreciated that. I mean, hopefully it's not all a litany of the shadow. You know, I liked your smile. I liked the way we talked about this. I like this. I like this. I like this. I like this. I enjoyed it when we went to Yosemite on this day. These were the reasons I showed up. To make you number one for 2 years, for a year, for an hour, for whatever it was. This is what I appreciate about you. Is that what you'd like to hear? Do you want to look at patterns, overlays, like, you know, I'm leaving because I'm tired of yet another woman saying she doesn't have time to talk about this and talk about that, but then she has time to go to the hairdresser and time to do this and time to go and chat on doing this. And the most intelligent things are not being talked about, and I'm just tired of it. Yes, there's nothing horrible about it, but I'm actually looking for one woman on the planet who brings up these kinds of things as opposed to dragging her feet woefully as if I'm torturing her to try and give her a hand out of her own pattern. That's what I'd like, and you just happen to be rather normal. You're part of the cult of America that doesn't like dealing with these things, and I'm trying to find someone who's broken out, if you get my meaning, you see. And well, there's nothing wrong with you if you want to be part of that cult. Be part of the cult. You've got lots to choose from, but I don't have lots to choose from, and it's precious this time. So so could we talk about it? And this is a difficult conversation. I've actually learned it's so difficult for many Americans that it's an indicator of whether it's a good relationship to begin. In other words, if you want to know if you're dealing with an intelligent, self-loving, honest, and self-aware person, ask them on a first date what a great ending would look like for them. And notice if they run like hell or if they wake up and say, what a great topic. Good ones, wake up. Because a good one is someone who's been through 5, 10, 20 relationships, knows their pattern, understands exactly how horrific an ending can be, doesn't want to play that out, knows that these get played out unconsciously, and knows that the only remedy is to make it conscious. And you cannot possibly do that in the trauma of ending. Ending is a trauma. Part of you is dying. You cannot think rationally about a healthy ending while you're dying. You're in traumatic mode. You got to do it before, when you can reach for the ending agreement and say, okay, we said we would. We said we would talk about everything that was good about the relationship. We said we would hold each other. We said, okay, I'll see you there. Okay, fine. It actually wasn't so bad. We talked, we held each other, we loved each other, we heard this, we cried together, we wished each other well, we agreed that we would not connect, so as we didn't get pulled back into the vortex, we would have no communication, not because you're a horrible person, but because I don't want to be pulled back into the vortex of something I don't know how to resolve. So, wonderful. So now we know how to engage when we interact in public. We don't actively engage. We might send a smile, but we don't connect, and we know that it's not because we hate each other. We know it's, okay, we understand that, oh, it's wonderful, great. So we have an ending with 1% of the population that shows up for an ending agreement. But there's also parts of me that are absolutely ignored. They have never been cultivated, never been taught, never been met, never been loved, never been honored, never been seen, never been asked for, never been paid for. Zip. They do not appear on the radar. Now, does this part of me feel like I belong? No fucking way. This part of me is so lonely and lost, it doesn't even know how lonely and lost it is. That doesn't belong. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the businessman that can design a $100,000 project in 4 hours and get it done on time or early, that is in high demand. So yes, I belong, meaning he belongs. The businessman belongs. And yes, the artist, I've learned in the United States of dogma that 99% of my clients want a very creative person to do what the neighbors did. And that they get upset when ideas that don't have a frame of reference in their little box emerge. It might be profoundly fun, interesting, and add biodiversity to the landscape to have a jet that shoots up pink every hour at after dark, along with a little bit of a burst of music, and we could tie it with this and play it with this and it would be so wonderful. Yes, but that's not what we're looking for around here. The question I had for you was, is this type of taupe, do you think it's more sophisticated than this type of taupe for a successful person like myself, you understand, in a neighborhood like this? Well, I will charge you $175 an hour to ponder whether to do this type of taupe or this type of taupe, and you will be very satisfied with the decision. So, yes, we want your artistic style, but, you know, within reason. Please select from the arrangement of taupes. And we could get really bold and decide to have a bougainvillea instead of a geranium. How about that? You know, it's a bit too much. Now we have a whole range of possibilities bursting out, and some are just punished. There's, you know, people get scared. Like when I smile at women in a dance floor, it's about, what is it, 85%? So 85%, if I'm in a dance and I'm wanting to connect the energy of one of a couple of these strings that I like to get into in dance, and there's this sense of joy and family. And when I'm in that flow, there's this sense of wanting to honor something beautiful in you. And I want to smile, and I want to see that you understand the beauty I'm seeing in you, and you enjoy being seen in that radiance. But you see, these women have a problem. And the problem is that smiling seems to equate with a sexual invitation and being loose and not being good feminists and needing a man and not being as sophisticated. And so they studiously glare, or more often they turn away. So 85% turn away and turn away and turn away, which lets this part know that's wanting to see and honor is far more important than jumping up and down, frankly. I can jump up and down at home. The purpose of going out to a dance for this part is to honor that part in you and have it received and have that part honored in me. But 2% of women give me that face, and 98% very studiously practice. It's a dissociative state. It's actually quite remarkable. In contact improv, you know, it's actually bizarre, the fact that empathy is treated with fear and hostility at ecstatic dance, of all places. So go to ecstatic dance to be looked at as a predator for smiling, and you will have a range of senses of what is and is not welcome here. So if you're willing to tune that all out and just ignore everyone's scowls and turns away and this and that and the other, and just enjoy a dance by yourself, it's wonderful. Or if you're willing to fight the odds. No, 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 no. Ah, yes. No, 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 no. Ah, yes. The trouble is, with this freeze point, trauma is the point where we feel threatened because we're not welcome. In Aboriginal tribes, they used to kill people simply by refusing to acknowledge they exist. I don't know which is worse, smiling at someone 3 feet away and having them actually, they have to exert energy, just so you know, biologically we attune to one another. If you spend enough time with someone, your heartbeat will reverberate at the same level. This is our biology, to attune and to respond. But American cult programming in the last 20 years has a different, it's really the last 30 years, in the last 30 years has a different program. These women have to train their muscles to tighten and go stiff in the face of warmth. They have to do it because a child, they can't resist. There's mirror neurons that are actively trying to help you know what's going on. There are mirror neurons that are actively trying to help you know what's going on and respond in attunement. And so you have to work about 4 times harder to resist the smile, biologically. And it has to become a learned habit before it stops, you know, oh, no, I don't do that. Remember, don't smile. Don't do that. No, that's one of those loser man, da, da, da. You have to remember all this stuff, and it takes lots of work. And one of the reasons I'm in Thailand, which is where I am right now, is because nobody bothers with that amount of work. They just smile. And it is so beautiful because it's the grace of the soul, the grace of the spirit, the presence, and it's most magnificent. It's just so beautiful. And, you know, I don't smile at the tourists because the return rate is not good, you see. The Thais will smile, but is it worth being told that you don't exist to try and break someone out of their frown and all that? And I'm no better at all. I mean, I walk around in, you know, crazed state. And this is part of what I'm getting at with this frozen point. There is a temperature range that the heart cannot deal with, and it freezes at that moment, and it doesn't start making music again, it doesn't start feeling again, it doesn't start connecting again, it doesn't start moving again, living again, until the temperature has risen. Now, typically what happens in energetic terms, and there's many different languages, in energetic terms, this would be called off the body, dissociating. If you're doing meridian clearing, that kind of thing, something happened, is too difficult for your conscious ego structure to deal with, it overrides a meridian, it overloads a meridian, goes off the body, and it's out, 10 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet. And you can find these little remnants if you do soul retrieval, healing, shamanism. It's like, oh, here's your 2-year-old frozen in terror when his mother glared at him with so much hatred that he knew she wanted to kill him. And it was just too much for a 2-year-old, so he's off in frozen terror with a little beep that sends out from time to time, I'm in frozen terror, there's something terrible going on, please help me. And the ego just panics and says, I don't know what the fuck is going on, I'm an emotionally illiterate American, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? You know, work harder, watch some porn, play a video game, you know, attack those people, I don't know what to do. Because I haven't been taught how to play the instrument of my own energy field, my own body, my own heart, because this is, of course, way too sophisticated for the most sophisticated culture to ever live on the planet, according to us, of course. This freeze point is the point at which parts of us die. This is the point a relationship goes numb in. Now, there is a point of strain in a relationship. There's obviously, hopefully at least, in a courtship, a point of great attunement and bond. But over time, when certain patterns repeat, that create pain for one person. Why? Because their ideal setting for the temperature is 82 and you always have it at 60, but they didn't tell you that. They hate perfume and it gives them a mild migraine, but they didn't want to offend your feelings by letting you know something like that. And plagued again. And this, by the way, for someone with PTSD, little things like that, they're not processed with the heart brain. They're processed by the traumatic brain that says there's something out of control moving around that's moving too fast to think I'm in danger, and all the attention goes to it. And this is what happens when the heart goes offline. The information is no longer processed by the human conscious, loving, empathic self, or the human conscious, hating, empathic self. It is being processed by the reptilian brain as a fight, flight, freeze. I'm in danger. Should I attack? Should I do nothing? Or should I run? And until I've done one of those things, I'm in danger. And lizard brain has taken over, and you don't get a human being until that is resolved. Okay? Tiny little insect that endangered your entire existence. Okay, we can wash out the chemicals of cortisol and adrenaline and fight, flight, freeze. Look at the grief that I didn't get to exist as a human being for all of 5 minutes or 60% of my entire existence on this planet, and do something to try and, ideally, you see, we're a frozen head consciousness. So when we want to run, we've got a cult that says, don't run, don't express all that panic and energy. Put on a smooth face. Don't express all that love. Be neutral. Poker face. Poker face. You need a poker face in a sociopathic environment. You need an empathic face in a loving environment. See, a loving environment, when your face gets filled with hate, people want to know what's going on and how they can help. In a loving environment, when you scream, you've got 10, 20 people coming to you and letting you know that their circle around you is holding you and you are safe. In a loving environment, you don't have to go into fight, flight, freeze and PTSD, because you've gotten the message over and over again that your needs are important enough to be attuned to as an infant, as a young child, as a teenager growing up, and as an adult. That you just need to let someone know and they will be there for you. So you don't have to go into the reptilian brain to defend yourself from reptiles. See, because it is reptiles, alligators, that say, nah, I'm busy, deal with that yourself. That's not my job, that's not my responsibility. Yes, this could totally change your life if I did this, but I don't feel like it. Nah. I'm doing what I'm doing, and I don't care about anyone else. I'm doing what I'm doing, and I don't care about anyone else. And yes, I kind of get that you're in absolute agony, but so be it. It's your own fault. Now, when this is the environmental culture, when this is the cult meme, the reptilian brain takes over. Okay, I know how to deal with that. I've dealt with crocodiles for 200 fucking million years. I know exactly how to deal with you. Hurt you hard, hit you here. If that doesn't do, run like hell. Freeze here, hide here. Okay, got this handle, got this handle. Have we got any more lizards around? Any more assholes trying to set me up for hurt that won't respond when I need them? Okay. Okay, am I safe? Are any of them on my scent? I gotta get rid of them. Okay, can I afford to be a human being again? Is anyone human around me that cares about any of this, or is this just facade? Who are we dealing with? Masks, games, who are we dealing with? What's the game? When you grow up around reptiles, you are regressed into the fight, flight, freeze, and that's the freeze point. That's the moment when you're screaming your head off at 6 years old because you were beaten and someone this, and then your brother lied and your parents didn't want to talk about it, and they didn't want to love you, and they didn't want you to understand the feelings, and they were just angry at you that you had an emotion that didn't fit into a world that was not designed for emotions. This is a cult world designed for fashion and money and lust and power. It's not designed for emotions. It's not designed for sensitivity. It's not designed for children. It's not prepared for children. Oh, there'll be endless people trying to sell parents things to make a buck. But none of those people will show up to stop the beatings. The careful carved wood toy manufacturers are not going to knock in the middle of the night and say, "How you doing, 6-year-old in there with your nightmares and trauma and screaming and all that?" No, they've got their money and off they go. And yeah, they hope you enjoy it as long as they don't have to deal with the shadow belly of our cult of violence, addiction, abuse, rape, this, that. No, okay, off you go. And so we understand, we learn. Trump learned with his violent, abusive father that the terrified 2-year-old and 5-year-old had no mercy. That none of the rich friends would put his tears or his emotions first. That he did not exist except as an object of hatred when he could not be used by a highly narcissistic and highly abusive parental structure. And he learned that when he cried at school, nobody took a stand for him. And he watched what happened to the most sensitive and emotional person who was bullied. And he watched the cute girls go for someone who was more sociopathic, not someone who was asking for help. And he learned that this is a world of reptiles, not human beings. And that the best way to win in a world of reptiles is to be the biggest reptile, to be more famous, to have more money, to be able to buy more sex, to be able to dominate and intimidate other people by having the biggest legal team. And he learned that in our cult. Now, this is no great mystery. It is often the most abused, terrified people who then have a chance, often because of their wealthy families, to then flip the table, because that's the bargain. You don't call me out on my shit and all the many horrific traumas that I induce in you as a child, and I'll give you my empire. And then you can dominate other people and have children of your own and make them feel just as shitty and small, and you can dish all that hurt out on everyone else who wasn't there for you, which is a conversation that Richard Branson commented on. Trump called him over from London to have lunch with him, and Trump spends the entire lunch talking about who's hurt him and how he's going to get revenge. Now, the point is, nobody's dealing with the 6-year-old terrified child who is absolutely clear from real and past evidence that no one is taking care of the abused children of America today. No one took care of them before. No one is poised to take care of them tomorrow. There are no taxes being allocated for the massive levels of systemic abuse. There is no census. The reptile, which is waiting in every single one of us to hand and manage a sociopathic environment looks around, is it safe to release the consciousness to the spiritual self in the brain? Is this an environment in which the endogenous DMT world of unity and generosity and truth will be honored, recognized, trusted, and loved and protected by everyone around them in the way that is necessary for that resonance to survive? Or is this a world that will nail that energy to a cross and crucify and demonize and fear and project and attack that innocence, like the most vulnerable boy in the playground that gets the biggest beating? What kind of a cult is this? Is there a safe enough refuge? Now, for many years, my refuge has been high. I could not count on my clients to be honorable, so I made good contracts, and then suddenly they were honorable. And no, I couldn't count on women to operate instinctively in a way that was kind or loving to themselves or me, so I would filter out, agreements, like, let's have a deal here. This starts to happen. Do we agree we're going to go and deal with therapy? Oh, you don't want to deal with therapy? Well, go deal with someone else, because you've got lots of unconscious men to choose from, and I'm looking for a conscious relationship. You don't want to do therapy, but you want to grow? I see. Well, how's that working? It's like, let's agree. So you want to have the most amazing lover relationship in your life, right? Are you looking for a sugar daddy? You want to participate in that? So what's your budget? What's your budget on a monthly basis for the most amazing relationship of your life? $200 a month? Okay, well, let's script it out. Okay, I'll meet you in there, 200 and 200, so we've got 400 a month. Let's have a balanced partnership here and see what we can create. And okay, so what are we going to buy with 400 a month? What are we going to do with 400 a month? What's your time budget for the most amazing relationship of your life? Do you know what you want? Do you know what makes you feel loved? Do you know how you want to end your relationship? Do you know what a great friend looks like to you? Have you got an ideal script in mind? Do you have any passions? What are your strengths? You don't have any of that. And you want the most amazing relationship of your life. Well, what is the relationship? You don't want to talk about it because you've changed since the last 10 relationships where you've been abused. I see, but you don't want to talk about it. Well, the trouble is, you're a candidate for repeat, because the people that don't want to talk about it are the people that don't want to look at it. The people that don't want to look at it are the people that repeat the pattern. So you're not heading at all towards the greatest relationship of your life. And I care enough about you to want to talk about it and not get fucked because I'm talking about it. Because you don't want to hear it. Because you don't want to know. And that's sad for me, because you've got what it takes if you line up your energies to fight for your future, not sabotage your future. You've got what it takes. You've got no more and no more less access to the psyche than I do. It's just a pattern of value hierarchies and repetition. So could we deal with it? No, 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 no. The trauma point for me comes in many forms when I realize that I'm not being punished because I'm not intelligent. I'm not being punished because I don't have a job. I'm not being punished because I don't know what I want. I'm not being punished because I'm a guy who doesn't talk about his feelings. I'm not being punished because I don't have a spiritual practice. I'm not being punished because I don't have a lot of time to show up for a woman. I'm not being punished because I'm not in touch with my feelings. I'm not being punished because I'm not interested in growing. I'm not being punished because I don't have a great lifestyle. I'm not being punished because I'm not willing to give my all. I'm being punished 85, 95, 89, 98, 99%, depending on the slice, because I won't lie, because I won't cheat, and I will have high expectations that someone shows up in the same way. I'm being punished because the demographic of women who have complained to me their entire life that there aren't any good men, that men don't want to show up, that men are cheaters, that men are liars, da 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 da. Because these women don't want to figure out an ending agreement. And I don't want to hurt them. I'm being punished because I want the audacious amount of spacious time that actually seems to work to lead great relationships. I mean, to give you a sense of that, I'm spending 24/7 with someone right now from another culture who has massive emotional baggage. Hooray, we all do. That just means she's got lots of feelings and is highly sensitive. That's a good sign. That's an instrument that can play. Who doesn't have this, no education, this, that, and the other. But what she does have is courage and vulnerability and responsiveness and priority and the ability to love and see and honor and care and forgive and play and love my little boy and love her little girl and let her little girl be loved, the inner child. She's got all of that, and it's all I need. She's grown 3,600% in less than 2 years. I'm at a 600% surge in creativity because she showed up. It's not because she was better. It's not because her breasts were bigger. It's not because her age was this or that or the other. It's because she showed up with emotions and honored both of us with the truth and with her time, with the time it takes to create an exceptional relationship. In this case, mostly 24/7. It's absolutely wonderful. And so it's off the charts in growth. She doesn't have experience. She has a different cult. She has a different cult is the big difference. You see, the American ethic teaches you that you're weak if you need someone, so don't need them. Well, that's hard when your emotions need is one of the strings. The more you love and care and the more valuable the relationship, that string starts to play. Need, it tells you that you're with something really valuable and important to you. Well, are you going to cut the string, or are you going to make the relationship so unvaluable that you don't need? Because why would you care that much about someone who's in that pathetic of a relationship with you? Or you see him on weekends for this and that and talk about little this and don't go into any of the deep stuff. Who gives a shit if that comes and goes? Nice little sex here and there. Little weekend fuck. No partnership, no soul journey, no healing process. Nice little weekend fuck. And I can be so proud of myself that I don't need anyone because I don't have anyone worth needing. Isn't it wonderful? I don't have that string on my instrument. How proud. It's bizarre. Well, she doesn't have that in her culture. There's no shame about needing. There's no shame about me needing her. There's a nice balance of deep, full, intense need. Physical need, emotional need, mental need, companionship need, fueling intense, rapid growth, intense healing, intense transformation for both of us. Scientists say do what works. Cults say do what everyone else is doing. The science of secure attachments point out that the biology in the human body, much like our pack ancestry, has nothing to do with the feminist movement. If I don't need this and I don't need that, no one's going to tell me what to do, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, I'm happy on my own, da-da-da. No, the science of our biology says that the bodies of people in really loyal, strong, healthy couples or triads or whatever it is that can count on the people in their life, that can need them and have the needs met, not need them and be betrayed. That's where we get into the it's more fun not to need. Who wants to need desperately in a cult of sociopathic betrayal, or when you're screaming, help, people shame you and point their finger and say, see, I told you, get out of here, you loser. Okay, it's more fun not to have any needs than to go through that bullshit, than to go through this cult ritual of shaming the feminine, because the feminine needs in a man and in a woman. Yin and yang, man and woman, there's as much yin and yang in every man and every woman. It's not sexist. Yes, some women are more masculine than men, or more masculine than feminine. Some men are more feminine than masculine. We all have a mix. But our cult shames the feminine. There is so much pain around a lifetime in which tens of thousands of data points all line up to slice through key parts of my psyche, key parts of my feminine side, my heart, my hope, my trust, shattered at statistically unimaginable levels relative to the little breadcrumbs of empathy and care and stuff. Nice little tidbit for you. It takes an average of 2 weeks and 3 phone calls to get a 2-hour meeting with a friend in the Bay Area. You start the ritual of calling around because you'd like to have lunch with someone that day. Let's have lunch with someone today. And it's like, well, let's see, I could fit you in call me next week, and I may be able to squeeze you in. I didn't want to be squeezed in. I wanted to have a luxurious lunch today. Well, I've got my sociopathic thing going on with this guy. I've got that keeping me pretty busy on here. I've got Seinfeld reruns. I've got this. I've got that. And then there's my book club on how to go nowhere in politics in America. Yes, I've got that. I just don't see any space for you. I'd love to be able to fit you in, but I've got to run. I've got a way to make $20 right now. Off I go. And so it's like, how many times does a human being wanting to share the joy of the moment want to do that? To get the message in no uncertain terms, you don't matter. Your feelings don't matter. The moment doesn't matter. Me staying addictively compulsive on many, many things and looking busy matters a great deal, and I'm not going to let you in. And when we do get together, it's like, no, I haven't thought about that. No, I haven't thought. I've been busy. Could we talk about attrition rates on websites? That's what I'm working on, or electric bicycles, or whatever it is. It's a very hollow experience. And so I'm in Thailand because when I arrived here, I noticed within the first month, 8 years ago, that I had more quality, spontaneous time with friendly, open Thais that weren't afraid of me in 1 month than I had in an entire year after frantically trying to cultivate meaningful friendships and relationships for 15 years. I had more quality, spontaneous, fun, and easy time with Thais and foreigners, that's how they call them in Thai, Farang. Everyone who's not Thai is Farang. And foreigners, then I do an entire year in the Bay Area. And it's not because I don't have time. It's because my rhythm of shall we do this now or shall we do this today, which is following the felt experience of the feminine self in the moment, does not fit in to cramped, addictive, overscheduled compulsion and schedules that are packed, and this need to cram and push, and it just doesn't fit. It's just no fun. It's just so hard. And so I just come over here, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But the amount of sorrow that I feel, that I don't know how to do that in my own country. And the visa and different requirements, I cannot just move here. I mean, there's all kinds of different things. And the sorrow that most of my entire life I've wanted what I find so easily in Thailand and never had it. I've called every single workshop participant on some of my early high workshops just to gather data. Hello, I'm Dane. I was at your workshop. Did you enjoy the workshop? You did? Okay. Well, here's my thought. Rather than each of us driving 2 hours to do what everyone else was doing in the way that they averaged out was good for the average person, for $500 plus hotel plus thing, $1,000 gas, time off work, all that. Rather than doing $1,000 in huge high adrenaline chunks and doing it the way they wanted to do it without checking in with us, what if we got together and practiced the same type of exercise and fiddled around with the time and saw what brought out the best in us? Would you be interested in doing that, man or woman, old or young, in this high workshop? No, you wouldn't. I see. Hello. Yes. Yes, I was in your recent workshop. Guess how many hundreds calls it takes to get one American, apparently interested in growth, to find that a compelling invitation? It's about 50. So if you want to sit there making 50 calls, and then for that in 2 weeks, you've got your 2-hour appointment, and they show up a little unusual, like, what's all this about? What's all this about? You know, I'm not sure about you. Why did you call me? Well, you were the only one who answered the phone. You were the only one who said that's why. You know, it doesn't frankly matter your boob size or this, that, and the other to practice loving relationship. What matters is that you're interested in it and are going to show up and be real. Well, okay. Well, I guess we'll give it a try. Oh, we have an amazing time. Well, then I don't hear from them. I don't hear from them. There's no thank you for the great invitation. I saved $1,000. I got to practice this. I got to do this. How nice. No one else has ever asked me that in America. You asked me. Here, let's go and do it again, and I'll invite you this time. No. It's, you know, it doesn't connect. Now, this gets even harder when I deal with symptoms of trauma, because high doesn't deal with the shadow. High doesn't deal with attachment theory. High doesn't deal with trauma theory. High doesn't deal with emotional literacy. High doesn't have a safe emotional conversation. High does not talk in person or otherwise about different childhood abuse and how that relates to relationships. High does not guide you into the domain that matters. And so, as someone with a strong need to have no connection or a deep connection, who is safety, as someone in the highly sensitive category, which Elaine Aron talks about, but Hyde does not. So that means I'm dealing with participants who are trauma illiterate, who are sensitive illiterate. If they're a good American, they've learned to shame and apologize for their sensitive side, or to suppress it and attack it and addict it. I'm dealing with people that have not been taught how to have a good ending. I'm dealing with people who have not been taught to talk about their abusive histories in the same way as their sexual history, which is the emotional component of relating well, which is all about this instrument in the heart. And I've been given a group of people who are shamed as Americans every time they don't know anything and admit that they're overwhelmed, admit that they're sensitive, admit that they're emotional, admit that they're overwhelmed. These are shamed traits in the United States of trauma and shame. And so every time I take them into a new territory, I watch this panic going in, like, oh my God, I'm going to be found out, I don't know, I'm not doing it good enough. And it's like, no, of course you're not doing it good enough. You're an American. None of us are. I mean, get over that. Can we get back to trying to figure it out for a few hours? Oh, I don't want to make a mistake. Of course you're going to make mistakes. I mean, this whole thing is a mistake. I mean, being raised with a heart without a single hour of emotional literacy, it's a mistake. It's mistake upon mistake upon mistake upon mistake, and it's so sad. And they're not your mistakes. Your only mistake is not questioning the cult you've been born in and thinking that it's always safer to be normal, however unscientific, however absurd, however ignorant, however abusive, however painful normal is in this cult. It's fucking painful. Now, I've found my breaking points where these emotions go from sadness and exhaustion and pain into dissociation, into clamping down, into freezing, into fight, flight, freeze in a number of areas. And with the high facilitators, that area was me going through, you can read the symptoms section of the website and see the immense amount of frustration and pain. And you can know that that's a third of it. You look at the symptoms page and know that that's a third of the pain and shame that I've dealt with at high. And then you extrapolate that and say that high is a little better than America, or I wouldn't be spending 40 grand on events and then another $200,000 or $300,000 trying to make relationships with 30 high participants work, all of them failing over time due to blind spots not addressed in the entire curriculum. They're not even addressed as an appendage. We don't teach this, read these books. They're just not covered. And this, by the way, it's talked about in spiritual terms as the trap of the Christian heaven, the trap of nirvana, meaning that everything is on a gradient scale. The difference between evil and growth, if you want to look in moralistic language, you're here. You're going here. You're coming from here. This is evil. This is growth. You're here. Your goal is here. This is evil. This is growth. Devolution is relative. When you're in bed drinking all day and have never had a date, going to a bar could be a step forward. When you're alone, not talking to anyone and feeling terrified, learning how to talk about your own body and say, I'm attracted to you, could be a big step forward. When you want to deal with grief and trauma, talking about how you are and are not attracted to someone and in a conversation that has nothing to do with trauma can be a step backward. When you've dealt with your pattern enough to say, this is my pattern, repeating it unconsciously is not going to teach you anything more. That was what you did to learn what the pattern was. It was good because now you're at least potentially awake. Freezing for 10 years, as some women I meet, including women at high, I haven't had a relationship for 10 years because I didn't want to repeat my last pattern. Okay, so you've been meditating, blah, 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 blah. Have you done any work on that pattern? Yes, I've been meditating and all this stuff. What does that have to do with the fact that every time you like someone, you lose your own voice? You haven't been practicing that. You haven't brought in a coach for that. You haven't included your partner in that dynamic. You haven't chosen a partner and seen how you're doing. You've been meditating. You've been away from the situation that you don't rely on yourself in. So you think suddenly by being 10 years out of practice of relationship, that's just vanished? Yes, I think that. Well, I'll bet it doesn't, because I've met enough of you and then spent time with you, and that doesn't seem to be how it works. It seems to be how it works that if you want to heal this pattern, you have to find a partner and a therapist that you say, this is my pattern, I don't want to create it, this is what I do to be part of the pattern, this is what they do to be part of the pattern. Now let's track a daily diary and see, are we in or out of the pattern? Because that's a reasonable way to notice what is and isn't beneath the pattern. Okay? You tell me that you need to have more of your own voice. Now I asked you what movie you wanted to go to. That was question number 1 today. I asked you where you wanted to eat. That was question number 2. I asked you, would you like sex or not like sex today? I asked you, would you like me to masturbate your clitoris or massage your breast, first or second? Would you like more or intensity and less intensity? And do you know what you answered every single time? Whatever you'd like, dear. Now, that's 5 for 5. That is a 100% play out of your pattern today. Now, shall we see how it is tomorrow? Oh, I don't like this. I'm a spiritual person. I do not like being treated this way. I'm going to go to my ashram. Okay, well, spend another 10 years, and I'm sure the next guy will not care enough about your pattern to make a diary. And you can pretend for a couple of years that you've changed it until you face the truth and burst up in tears and wonder why the world is out to get you, because you don't want to look at the pattern that you're participating in. So we can't deal with it. And see, this can sound absolutely absurd. And on one level it is. You look at it again, again, again. You see, I don't meet people, by and large, that don't have these types of things going on. And these are the growth-oriented people, the people willing to spend money on workshops, read books, have conversations, be on the conscious singles, And I don't meet people who don't have this kind of stuff. Now, this is what I missed. I mean, these anomalies are absurd. You want to change your pattern, you're insisting on doing your pattern, you're angry at anyone who points out your pattern. Good luck with that. Okay, bye. What's hidden beneath this are these freeze and flow points. What's hidden beneath this is a load. There is a load. And I want you to look at it like this. how much weight from the culture, from the ancestors that have not been grieved, from the suppressed shame around this drunken habit, how much weight is funneled on a given individual in a given moment on their emotional instrument, this heart? How much weight is pressed in pounds per square inch on this tiny individual construct called a self? Number one. Number two, how much emotional literacy? Like how much skill has been taught to this person to measure the weight, to do dialoguing, to do clearing, to do meditation, to talk with their partner, to clear up every day, to do a journal. How much have they learned to deal with this? How much are they actually creating explosions by saying, I'm a bad person because I'm hating, as opposed to saying, okay, hate is playing. What in my environment is reverberating as powerlessness, as rage, as desperation, as very important to me, as intense concentration, because that's the environmental correlation to hate. So if I can change what's powerlessness, like I have a husband who terrifies me with his criticism. Number one, terror. I have an unpredictable husband. I have no idea when it's coming. I have a husband that lays into me with that energy at a higher rate than I can process and does not attune himself to me. I have, in short, a husband that's going to traumatize me. That's not enough to produce hate. This is terror we're dealing with. And I have a husband that every time I try and fix something before it goes wrong, shames me, is not available to talk, will not deal with it. Now we've got hatred. You see, now we've got hatred. That's the last bit in the environment, powerlessness. I'm set up to fail, and I try this, he won't talk. I try this, he lies. I try this, he makes jokes at my expense. I try this, he says, where are you going? Because I'm trying to get away, and then he blames me for that. I try this, he turns the kids against me. Okay. Is there any possible fucking alternative to this failure happening again? No, I don't see it. I don't see it. And I want this relationship to work. I don't have the energy, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the skill, I don't want to do this again. I hate him. I hate him. That son of a bitch. That fucking coward. And then I don't know when it's going to hit again. Oh gosh, it just crashed me to pieces again. And I feel so weak and so small. I hate him. I fucking hate him. You see, we don't have the technology to break down the environment and correlate it with the strings in our own heart. To say, as an intelligent cult, they're all cults, but intelligent cults say, wow, let's go back to grade 3 when we learned about hate. So what do you think we could do here to change the environment? Could we get your husband to do a single one of those 5 options intelligently? Because if he'll do a single one of them, then you're not powerless. Could you do that? Could we in the environment help you find another person so that you don't have the energy to find another person, but one of us does, so we'll do it for you, and we'll actually do a good job because we'll spend the 10 hours to do intelligent breakdown because we actually know something about emotional literacy in our cult. Not an American cult, of course, but in our cult where we have intelligent education, educare. We bring the self and psyche out, so we learn things. So let's get you someone. Just as an aside, I've asked every single one of 30 practitioners, including the 4 high facilitators, do you know a single woman anywhere in or out of the community that meets these criteria? No, that's going to be tough. No, I don't know. I don't know. No, I don't know. How about you? No, I don't know anyone. How about you? I don't know. Well, I found someone, you knew them. Well, I didn't think that would be the right thing for that. Well, why not? Well, I didn't think about it. You know, it's a bizarre thing. So you change the environment. You don't change the instrument. There's nothing wrong with the human heart. If you're feeling hatred, it means that you've got a constellation of energy around you that includes the feeling of powerlessness. Now, you cannot change the powerlessness until you know what you need and want that you are powerless to do, number one. Number two, you have to know why you are powerless. Some of us are powerless because of psychic contracts. The contract goes like this. Dear abuser, I agree not to see your massive abuse as abuse. I agree never to tell anyone, including myself, that what you're doing is shaming and absolutely abominable and tearing my soul apart. I agree that I will tell you you are a wonderful person when you are tearing me to shreds. I agree that I will be interrupted at parties and make you look smart while you make me look stupid. I agree that you are more smarter than me, even though the evidence points to the contrary. I agree that you are the expert, and so everyone should shut up and let's all pretend you're the expert, even though you don't know what you're doing. I agree that you can do what you want to do, and I will not say anything, and when I do what I want to do, you will say something in loud protests. For this agreement, you will not hit me more than twice a year. You will not shame me as much in front of my relatives. You will pay this bill. You will not abandon me here. You will not have an open affair. You will not do this and this and this and this. Signed, yours truly, scared little boy who had to sign this contract with their dad in order not to be murdered. So the contract is accessible to anyone with a counterpart. When the contract cannot be looked at because it's too overwhelming in a cult that attacks you, or that, you know, for example, when I would bring up issues with my Christian Waldorf teacher, mentor, friend, this was a 50-year-old woman I would go for walks on with as my only social support in my teen years. And I would challenge my parents from time to time. And being the good Christian that she was, and being my only support, she would tell me that I was being ungenerous, that I was not seeing things from their point of view, that I was bad to hate my parents, and that I was very, I should be a good Christian person, and that I should change. Meaning, she never went to my parents once and told them, you should stop abusing your children this way, you should stop abusing them this way, and be a good Christian parent. Because in the abuse ritual, which begins with God, by the way, God tells you to go up a mountainside and bring your only begotten son and cut his head in half to show your fealty to the Lord. Oh, you get your son, you take him up the mountain, you raise your sword, and God says, wait, you have proven that you are as sociopathic as I am. You're part of the gang now. You're the kind of guy I like to be one of my followers. I've got plans for you. We can wander around the desert for 40 years. You like that one? No, you don't like that one? How about a big flood? And you can sail around in a boat packed with shitting animals. You don't like that one? What? We've got plans for you, and they're all sociopathic. They're all games that terrorize you. None of them nice games like, I have a cell phone for you, where I'll call you up and say, hello, I'm God. Anything I can help with today? Oh, you can't eat. Your daughter's being raped. Genocide in Rwanda. Well, I'd love to help. So I'll be right there. Oh, thank you, God. Oh, see, there's none of that. The first sociopath, the first abusive contract is with God. I better not disobey this fucked up sociopath, or he'll send a lightning strike. He will send a flood. He will burn me into 1 billion years. He will fire me for all eternity. And then now we've got sociopathic bishops and crusaders butchering and murdering the masses and stuff like this. So this contract starts with God. It starts with the Father, actually. I mean, this is, of course, not God that we're talking about. This is the abusive father projected into mythological space. And when you've got a fucked up father that beats you for the whim of it, that every time you think something that might be displeasing to him, he hits you and ruins your life, and he seems like a giant when you're 2 foot tall, and shakes you and tells you you're disappointing, you're never going to amount to anything, now disappear and never talk to me again. Well, that's kind of like the God that we would create in our imagination to pretend, rather than the actual deity that would be a little bit more human than our Father, a little bit more evolved than we are, not some idiot like our abuser, just made on a grander scale. But of course this is not how children think. The dad is the God, and unfortunately they correlate. The Christian God then turns around and says, you are commanded to love your parents. Now this is evil. It's evil. The healthy flip is the parent is commanded to love the child. A child cannot love, first of all. They can just absorb. Secondly, you cannot tell anyone what to feel. This instrument rings based on the environment that constellates around the instrument, the environment of the past, beliefs that form with repeat experience. I mean, there's this whole create your own reality thing. And I was doing work with Lazarus, the channeled entity, hours and hours, I would say hours and hours, thousands of hours. So we're dealing with hundreds of tapes, 3 hours long, thousands of hours, hundreds of meditations done multiple times, some of them done, hundreds and hundreds of hours of inner child work and all this stuff. Now, Lazarus is there over and over again saying, you create your own reality with your beliefs, with your choices, with your stuff. And I'm listening to my parents terrorize my siblings. They've already done it to me, and I've walled them off. I've locked them out of my room. I'm listening to this. And I do this meditation, my parents don't change. I do this meditation, my parents don't change. I do this meditation, my parents don't change. It's the same message. Like, Lazarus, you fucked up creep. Could you get off of your high horse and actually talk to my parents for me while I'm stuck in my room? Oh no, we would not want to interfere with your right to create your reality the way you want. Not the, it's just keep programming, keep resolving, and like, what? My father just died after, 40 years of programming and blah, 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 in the same delusional state as the one he was born. What beliefs would have magically changed that? I don't know. But of course, it's put on the child. It's not put on the parent. It's not put on the teacher. Rajneesh sat in his hermitage, went silent after empowering a very headstrong 16-year-old girl who didn't like meditating to run his cult, and charging her with results which he refused to be responsible. Go forth and make me an army of 100,000 new people. Do this, make things happen. No, I don't want to be bothered with laws and politics. I'm meditating. I'm in silence for 2 years, and then I'll come out and blame you. You did it wrong. Go and commit suicide. How dare you? You stole all my money. It's like, is that the way to manage a 16-year-old? Shall we just blame? And you can look at the soul of this woman. She is deeply hurt and wounded. You watch the video on the new, what is it, the Wild West. Anyway, Netflix has a good documentary on Rajneesh type thing. And I'm not commenting on the ideals, and I'm not commenting on the goals, and I'm not commenting that there weren't wonderful things done and truths. I'm commenting on the specific trait of authority figures in our cult paradigm of power, which don't like to take the hit. Bush wants to blame it on his, on this. Trump wants to blame it on Cohen. Rajneesh wants to blame it on a 16-year-old girl that he chose. It's like, you fucked up idiot. You're a man of the world. You pick a 16-year-old and you say, and you don't manage it. Well, what do you expect? You're an idiot. Wake up, wake up. Don't induce her into suicide. Wake up. But we protect these leaders. We protect them. Oh, so sacred, and so there's, we can't talk this. We can't talk about the high facilitators. We can't do it. We can't do it. You might want to approach them. One person said when I said, are you having trouble connecting with Peter Rangel? Yeah, he's never liked me for 8 years. And it's like, well, you might try hugging him. I found he didn't like me, and then if you give him a really long hug, that shifted it for me, like little code words to get facilitators to behave like human beings. Well, let's try the really long hug. No, didn't seem to work. Anyone else got any secret codes for Peter Rangel? Anyone? Why these pedestals? People want to put me on a pedestal, and then they want to put me in a shithole. It's the same thing. I'm not a scared, fucked up, lonely, terrified, frustrated, brilliant, angry, honest, never cheated on anyone, passionate about growth individual that's trying to make the most of it. No, you're the most brilliant person I've ever talked to. You're a horrible weirdo. I want nothing to do with it. You're a bad person. You're an angel. No, you're a devil. It's like, just look. I'm here. And it takes hours and hours to get to know this. That are the hours and hours that Americans don't have. Well, I guess make up your story. This is all bullshit. Make it up. It takes time. My freeze points, which the biggest one came when the high facilitators refused to apologize. I'd gone through the whole traumas with all the participants. I've worked with 4 facilitators. I've been sexually abused with Peter Sandel in 1993. I tried to resolve it. I tried to do this. I brought it to the high attention when I couldn't drive. I said it was getting much worse. I said this was a high issue. I told them to get out in front of it because I didn't want to be responsible for capsizing high. And I thought, I've read about scandals. I've read about ethical boards of directors. I know what they're dealing with. My father ran a nonprofit. I know what, and this is of course the joke. It's like you have these goody two-shoes, new age parents that fuck you up and can't do anything wrong. They're of course much too busy running their world-saving nonprofits to possibly apologize for any of the most basic things they can't manage to do at home. Now, so this is perfectly obvious. Is there a single person? Look at what Tony Robbins does when he makes a goof. He gets out ahead. He has his team. They understand that you don't disown a big fuck up like this. Like, just look at all of you. Let's look at the stupidity ratio here. Let's look at all of you. How many of you, not the high facilitators, they're excluded because they've already voted, but how many of you think that a high facilitator, trained, chosen, recommended, without caveat, meaning there's not, he's recommended for this but not for this, and is not, oh, I can't help you with this because I'm not qualified. No, I've never met a psychological terrain that the high facilitators didn't jump into. I want to talk about this? Fine, we'll talk about this. I want to go here, they'll go there. I want to go this, I want to be helped, they'll help me. I want to do this, they'll go wherever you want. But they seem to leave it up to you to know what you don't know. There's not the grounding of discipline, protocols, and professional training to say, ooh, for your type of personality, let's ask this question, and show this about you that you didn't know. And then because of this, I'm not going to do this, and because of this, I'm going to recommend this book. No, it's just be here and spend money. Now, so without caveat, and oh, by the way, we're not going to tell you we're not licensed, but we're going to push you to overdose on your first psychedelics. We're going to fight you to overdose, number one. Number two, we're going to ignore the 10 years of 30 workshops in which every time you say you're highly sensitive and have this and this and this, let's just ignore that. Let's push for overdose. Ignore this, break this boundary, ignore this one, put you in between my wife, do this, till you can't drive. How many of you think that's a high issue to deal with when a high participant calls the group of facilitators and says, I can't drive, I need to be held, I don't know what's going on, I need help now? How many of you think the first response should be call a lawyer and let the patient bleed to death? Anyone? Anyone for that one? Anyone? Being a good American, probably some good votes for calling the lawyer. How many think it's not a high issue? How many think that if high has $1,500 to spend, they should spend it refunding some of the abuse practice, or hire attorney to try and pressure closing down the website, and then hire a court in Europe to try and close down the website? How many people vote for that? That's what gives you hope and inspiration that this is a community of people that are committed to the safety of their participants? How many people are more likely to recommend a friend knowing that if they get sexually abused by a high facilitator, the high facilitators will spend more money trying to cover up the story than they will honoring that it even happened, and that they will not apologize? So my breaking point was, I was desperately trying to avoid a fight because I'm an avoidant. I'm a run in trauma. Freeze and run are my first, and every trauma survivor has a coping strategy. We deal with all of them, but the first option is freeze. So I froze for almost 6 months. Then I ran and tried to avoid conflict. I was very diplomatic, tried to focus on making my abuser feel good about themselves, been happy, let's love Peter, everyone love Peter please, da 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 da. And I met with, this isn't a high issue. This collapsed, meaning it means I'm failing. My running and my freezing are not keeping me safe. How do I know? My body's collapsing. Now I work with this all the while my body reserve's going down for 2 months. And I lose it, and I ask for an apology. And I get complete and utter silence. Because this, of course, is not a high issue. Then I say, I switch to fight. I've already been overloaded with so much abuse and waste by the facilitators over so long that I cannot deal with it on my own. I need help. I'm watching parts of me die. I'm watching my heart ripped apart. I'm watching strings being plucked inside that I've never felt physiologically, emotionally. I'm watching my head go numb back here. And I see this as the single biggest crisis of my entire life. And I'm looking, what is the easiest thing for these psychopaths to do that would help me out of this moment? And I say, if they all sincerely apologize for all these things, that would take 30% of this weight off me today. And I might be able to breathe again.